This segment sponsored by Kevin McIntyre, a licensed insurance agent with Health Markets Insurance Agency. Welcome back to our Medicare Because We Care series, where we are speaking with licensed insurance agent Kevin McIntyre from Health Markets Insurance Agency. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Jessica.
How's it going?
It's going great. Good to be back.
Yes. Well, throughout this series, we are covering so many important topics. Yeah. And I know that today we're going to talk about something that's so important to so many people, and that is their Medicare and their prescription drug cost. Yes. And I know that this upcoming year in 2025, there's some really big changes happening, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Can you share with me what those changes are?
Yes. So I'll cover like three of the biggest changes. So coming in 2025, and this is really important for people to understand, there are some big changes coming to prescription drug coverage. And one of the biggest one is the elimination of the donut hole or the coverage gap. A second big change is the max out-of-pocket being capped at $2,000 for the year. And then a third change or new option for people is going to be something called the Medicare Prescription Payment Program, which will help people with some of their higher drug costs. So those are the big three.
Okay, well, that is a lot of good stuff. So let's just take it one by one.
Sure.
So what is the donut hole that's going away?
Okay, so the donut hole is also known as a coverage gap. And if anybody that's listening or you know anybody on Medicare that has a more expensive drug, usually a tier 3 or higher drug, they at some point during the year could enter what was called the donut hole. It's when their cost increases of what they have to pay for their drugs at some point during the year based on calculations. We don't have time to go into great detail about that, but in a nutshell, once you enter the donut hole, people would pay a higher percentage of drug costs until they reach a certain limit. And it could be difficult for some people to afford at times. But one thing to pay attention to, especially if you are on a Medicare Advantage plan, like we talked about last week, a lot of those plans this past year, or in 2024, would have had $0 deductibles on their drugs. But in 2025, many Medicare Advantage plans are expected to have higher deductibles for their drug coverage. This increase is part of the broader changes in Medicare that we're discussing, which again includes this elimination of the donut hole and the cap on out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs. So it's important that people review their annual notice of change documents. Every one of those documents will outline if there is a deductible coming up for their particular plan for 2025. But as far as the donut hole goes, once people are through the deductible phase and they're into their initial coverage phase, there is a calculation called TROOP, or true out-of-pocket, that will then determine when they get to the next phase, which is a catastrophic phase. And if they do reach that, then their drugs will be no charge the rest of the year. So it is designed to help people with those higher cost drugs to lower their total out-of-pocket for the year.
Okay, so what about this new maximum out-of-pocket that you mentioned?
Sure. Again, this is all designed to help lower costs, and the government has implemented a $2,000 max out-of-pocket for anybody that's on a Medicare prescription drug program, as long as those drugs are in that company's formulary. So again, remember last week you talked about checking your drugs and your doctors on a Medicare Advantage plan. Well, it's very important to check your drugs on your prescription drug plan to make sure those drugs are in the company's formulary. And in 2025, if the drugs are in the formulary, then you will not spend more than $2,000 the entire year for your drugs, which is a big decrease from years past. So we're excited about that change.
That is exciting. So lastly, what about the prescription payment program option? What is that?
So the prescription payment program from Medicare this year is something brand new in 2025. It's going to start in January. And people can opt into this program if they feel like that January cost, remember how we talked about the deductible.
Right.
Next year, the maximum deductible is $590. Every plan, again, it's important to look at your plan's documents to see what that deductible is. But if you have a large charge at the beginning of the year and you're going to have trouble affording that, the government is giving you the option to enroll in this Medicare prescription payment program where you will notify your company that you would like to enroll, and they will take the amount of that drug or the amount that you owe, and they will spread it out over the entire year for you. Or however many months that are left in the year when you enroll. So it's going to be a good option for those who have a little bit of sticker shock in January when they go to pick up their drugs. Now, it is important to know that from what we understand now, that you need to enroll in that program prior to going to pick up your prescription drugs. I'm hearing at least 24 hours. So contact your company, contact your agent, make sure that if you want to enroll in that program, that they are aware of that. So that's the new prescription payment program, and we're anticipating a lot of people taking advantage of that.
Right, absolutely. I mean, that sounds like really great information and hopefully very helpful for our viewers. Yeah. And so again, it really stresses the importance of not trying to do this alone and really reaching out to a licensed agent like Kevin here for guidance, right?
Yeah, and trying to go about this, the more that I try to explain it to people, it almost gets more confusing as you get into it more and more. So really take the time. If you have a local agent that you trust, absolutely go to them. We are obviously happy to help if you don't have that local person. But yeah, these new rules, I think, ultimately are going to benefit a lot of people. It's just knowing how to navigate them this first time around. So.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. We appreciate the information. And don't forget that you can actually email your questions to Kevin, and it may get answered on a future segment. And if you would like more information about Health Markets Insurance Agency, we'll have their website listed below, and we'll be right back. This segment sponsored by Kevin McIntyre, a licensed insurance agent with Health Markets Insurance Agency.